Thank you.
Yes, Council.
Good morning, Ms. Myeni.
Good morning, Council.
Ms. Myeni, when we stopped yesterday, we were talking about the report of the Operational Review Committee, which is in Volume 2, page 130. And you will recall that you had requested and given terms of reference to this committee on the 30th of May, and which was a Friday, and Mr. Bosk testified that the group met all day on the 1st and the 2nd and handed its report in on the 3rd. And there are just a couple of paragraphs I'd like to highlight to you in this report. Under item 3 on page 131, one of the terms of reference A is to assess the proposal and advise us of SAA's benefit on the deal in pure financial terms. And your task team said the code share agreement between SAA and Emirates has been and is also currently the most profitable code share across SAA's entire network. The arrangement has been hugely beneficial to SAA in that it has been drafted to provide SAA with reduced rates to purchase seats from Emirates on a hard block basis, with the ability to return unsold inventory back to Emirates at no loss to SAA. Safeguarding this uniquely profitable deal is of utmost importance to SAA. Furthermore, and I must emphasize that, safeguarding this uniquely profitable deal is of the utmost importance to SAA. Furthermore, the revised SAA network plan from March 2015 has placed the annual earnings before interest and depreciation return on SAA's proposed operations to Dubai at a positive sum of 150 million rand. The proposed and novel minimum revenue guarantee on the beyond sectors will also serve to minimize SAA's exposure to financial risks. Ms. Myeni, in your examination in chief, you denied that the Emirates deal, by losing this Emirates deal, it cost SAA anything at all. Do you still hold that view?
Please, can you repeat your question?
In your examination in chief, you denied that the fact that this deal was never signed, you denied that it cost SAA anything.
I denied that, my lady, I denied that the deal was never signed. The deal was signed.
No, but you also testified quite clearly that SAA was giving everything and SAA was in a financial difficulty and Emirates was actually profiting from the deal to no advantage for SAA.
That was the before MOU, my lady. This Emirates was never opposed. Emirates deal was never opposed from the outset, my lady.
But why didn't you then, what I can't understand, on the 16th of June, why didn't you then agree to the signing of this highly profitable deal,
my lady,
which was in existence long before the 16th of June?
I denied that the deal was never signed.
I did not say it was never signed. I'm asking a direct question. On the 16th of June, there was great international interest in the signing of this deal, yet you advised Mr. Besaidnout not to sign it. Why?
The board had not met to consider the
Why
final...
did the board then not meet? Because there was meetings prior to this. There was this advisory board on the 3rd of June. You, at that stage, said that you would come back before the 9th of June. You were well aware that on 16 June, in the eyes of the world, SAA would get this hugely profitable deal and all the advertisement that goes without it. And it turned out to be a national embarrassment.
The board had not met to consider the reviewed...
Why did the board
MOU.
not meet? Everyone knew the 16th of June was D-Day. Everyone was well aware of that fact. If then, did the board not fail abysmally in their duty to consider it in the eyes of the world? We were embarrassed as a country.
It is unfortunate, my lady, that the board had not met to consider the revised MOU. And indeed, my lady, from the beginning and from the outset. And after that, it was considered and the
deal was
executive
never
got-
signed, and this deal collapsed. Am I correct?
The MOU was approved, my lady. The deal did not
When was it
collapse.
signed by the board? When did the board give instructions that the MOU could be signed?
In July, my lady. Not on the 16th of June.
Proceed, Miss.
We'll go. But now you say that the MOU was signed.
No, I'm saying the support that was requested
Okay.
was given.
Okay. And then B there, on page 131, says, it is envisaged that Emirates will place its code on SAA's metal, with SAA reciprocating on Emirates' network. Now, Ms. Myeni, that was the fourth frequency. The fourth frequency from Dubai to Joburg and Joburg to Dubai was on own metal. And it was with SAA's codes. And all 4 of SAA's executives testified to that. Ms. Mshe, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Bosk, and not Mr. Besaidnout, I'm mistaken. That the point about this fourth frequency that apparently we hear caused all the trouble was that the reason that this new deal had turned it to the advantage of SAA is that it would be own metal. It would be those A330s flying in and out. But it seems that's something that you had not understood at the time. Am I right?
The board considered the MOU and gave support to the executives.
Indeed. The benefits to this level of cooperation are tangible and significant. The SAA network will grow exponentially, your team tells you, and become more marketable through access to the Emirates network. The growth to South Africa's, to SAA's Johannesburg hub, and consequently its operations, as well as those of SA Express, through the increased passenger traffic, will be of great benefit to SAA's domestic, regional and international increased passenger flows, resulting in the opening of additional destinations. The proposed strategic cooperation will also provide SAA with the opportunity to align Emirates' schedule with its own, thus generating additional options for passengers through possibilities such as the combination of itineraries between the two airlines. I presume you read this on the 3rd when you got the report.
When I received the revised MOU,
You read it. So you heard that the network would grow exponentially if this was signed. C says the risks not mentioned in the MOU or any document re the counterparty and their interest in South Africa, which was your next term of reference. And the report is identified risks have been discussed at length by the advisory group and have been addressed through proposed changes to the draft MOU. And I will show you in a moment what those proposed changes are in the attached MOU. E, you asked, this is on page 132. You asked for the value proposition in relation to guaranteed revenues, risks associated with this. The guaranteed revenues on an individual route basis are subject to in-depth study and further negotiations between SAA and Emirates. On the basis of the revised network plan, SAA has identified significant commercial benefits in concluding the proposed strategic cooperation with Emirates. And then, perhaps most importantly, you asked what are the risks in not taking this offer? What are we going to lose if we don't take the offer? And your operational review committee tells you the most significant risk lies with losing the opportunity to gain access to the significant commercial and operational benefits extrapolated above. SAA will lose the opportunity to conclude a strategic partnership with the partner identified as the best option in its approved network plan, which simulated and compared how Emirates, Etihad, Egypt Air, and Turkish could benefit SAA's bottom line. The proposed strategic cooperation with Emirates would comply with the identified recommendation in the long-term turnaround strategy for SAA to establish a mid-hemisphere hub. The Emirates network out of Dubai is unrivaled and would provide SAA with access to a greatly increased number of connection points. And may I say, when your middle management person under BOSC complains that planes are not being used, that's why they're not being used. Because had this deal been signed and had the network and fleet plan been put into action, then the network out of Dubai would have provided SAA to access with its own metal to a greatly increased number of connection points. But this is the deal that was never signed. On page 133, you asked, while the proposed focuses on pure business and commercial relationships, while the proposal focuses on pure business and commercial relationship, is the proposal in the best interests of SAA or more in Emirates' favour? With the proposed amendments made by the advisory group to the MOU, it is the collective view that the MOU is a balanced document. The benefits for Emirates lie with gaining SAA's support for its existing frequencies to South Africa, while SAA will derive significant commercial and operational benefits from its strategic cooperation. It is important to note that hitherto these frequencies have been given to Emirates and indeed other international airlines without consultation with or benefit to SAA. The MOU as drafted provides tangible benefits to SAA and will result in a win-win situation for both parties. And here they say, until recently, the Department of Transport issued frequencies without consultation. Now, as Mr. BOSC testified, he would meet regularly with the Department of Transport, and they could act as partners and strategize together to make the frequencies that legally were already Emirates' work for SAA. So the recommendation, signed unanimously below, having regard to the above, it is recommended that the board notes the responses of the advisory board and approves the conclusion of the MOU. And all the people that you say you trusted signed this. Now, if you go to 135, this shows the changes that the advisory committee suggested. They are tracked. So you see on page 135 in the first paragraph, they changed June to July. And you'll see there's one whereas that's inserted. Whereas the strategic cooperation does not involve any discussion regarding an equity investment in SAA by EK, and the parties to this MOU have never discussed anything related to such an investment by EK. And there is one other change, as I recall. Yes. No, that's it. That's it. Ah, here it is. Under regulatory control, page 145. You see there's a little line on the left because there was a change there. And that was simply a typo. As such, EK and SA agree not to implement any of the principles contained in this MOU until a full regulatory analysis has been carried out by each of them. So, Ms. Myeni, you get the report from your committee on the 3rd. It tells you that there are enormous advantages to signing. It tells you that there are enormous disadvantages to not signing. And the changes to the MOU, as all our witnesses testified, were not material. Would you agree?
They covered all the concerns that we had. Yeah.
Yes, they covered all the concerns that you had. And at this stage, we know that D-Day is the 16th of June. Now, Mr. Bezuidenhout then, on the 12th of May, following the Dubai trip, which you cancelled your own attendance 24 hours before, he emailed the board on the 12th of May, giving a full update. And that is on volume 2, page 117.41. We've been through this extensively. If you just look at the conclusion, before we get to the conclusion, In the conclusion, on page 177.48, he says, conclusion and guidance required. SAA finds itself in a very unique position. Sorry, it's the very last paragraph. SAA finds itself in a very unique position where it has the option of strengthening the existing Emirates relationship, massively expanding SAA's coded presence, and de-risking SAA's single most profitable commercial arrangement. The action would align to the LTTS strategic direction. I kindly request that the board provides any input and guidance on this matter, in addition to the comments Dr. Tumby provided in early February on the ETA code share. So he expressly, on the 12th, asks for guidance and input. And then if I can just take you back to, it's not back, volume 2. Volume 2, page 151. Mr. Bezuidenhout, at the bottom of 151, emails you, as well as Dr. Tumby, Mr. Mayor, and he copies a whole lot of other people. And he says, "Dear board member, further to the related discussion on this matter and the board's request for a consolidated submission, kindly find attached the same, sent in a number of mails due to size constraints. This submission follows the review by the operational committee as nominated by the chairperson and reflects the functional view of the opportunity. I also attached a revised version of the MOU, which is aimed to incorporate previous comments and guidance. Please accept my apologies for the document not physically being signed, given that I'm travelling at present." And you will see what he attaches here is the consolidated submission, the updated MOU, the 2 legal reviews, one from your own advisor, Mr. Linnell, and one from the internal legal department, both of which said it's non-binding. Don't worry, it's non-binding. The Operational Review Committee recommendation and the Deloitte review. So that's on the 7th of June. On the 11th of June, on page 150, Mr. Bezuidenhout emails you, it's towards the bottom of the page. "Hi Chair, I acknowledge your formal request received via SMS for you to meet with the SAA Operational Review team who did the review of the MOU and supported its signature. Is it possible for you to have that meeting after the supplier development engagement tomorrow? May I also request, subsequent to the submission sent on the 7th of June 2015, whether any other concerns exist from the board?" And then he also attaches a release by Qantas yesterday, attributing in part the 300 million Australian dollar turnaround achieved to their similar Emirates relationship. And on page 151 he says, "I please need urgent guidance." And Mr. Bezuidenhout testified before this court that you said you didn't have time to meet with the Operational Review Committee as proposed. Is that correct?
The board had not had time.
You asked for you asked. The evidence is you asked
He
for a meeting.
specified the time after the supplier development. That's what he's talking about here. At that particular time, the supplier development time was not going to permit, because the supplier development was the whole day event.
So-
It is only on the day that he requested, but not that I did not have time to meet with the board to consider the review team's proposal. But the day he asked was the supplier development
Yes.
engagement day, which he asked, which could not happen.
So, Ms. Myeni, why didn't you round robin it? Why didn't you say, my Operational Review Committee has given a double thumbs up to this deal. Can we round robin and get approval? As you did many times with the your amendment to the Airbus swap transaction. You used round robin all the time. Why didn't you round robin this to the board, knowing that there was a massive international event scheduled on the 16th?
I might not be able to provide you with an answer to why I did not round robin, but it could have been part of the plan that it can be round robin, because we had all received the reviewed MOU.
Yes, it could have been round robin. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But it wasn't. And the testimony of Mr. Bezuidenhout, Mr. Bosk, and particularly Mr. Mayer, was that you were absolutely intent on putting stumbling blocks in the way of signing this. And that was one stumbling block. Now, Mr. Bezuidenhout and Mr. Bosk also testified that they had received approval and support from every other board member. Now, it's common cause Mr. Dixon gave his report, his approval in writing. We read that. He said it's not us, it's not the board, it's not management who've caused delays here, it's the board. We read that yesterday, and I support this. We know that Mr. Mayer supported it. At that supplier day, Mr. Bezuidenhout said he met with Ms. Kwanana, and she said all her concerns were satisfied, and that he met with Dr. Tambi on the 9th of May, he met with Dr. Tambi, and Dr. Tambi said all his concerns were addressed. Sylvain. Sylvain met with Dr. Tambi, Sylvain Bosk met with Dr. Tambi. So at this point, both Mr. Bezuidenhout and Mr. Bosk testified that there was only one person who had not approved this deal, and that was you.
Council, once the majority approves, it's a collective decision and it's ownership, owned by everyone, even if it's one person or two people, but as long as the majority approves, it's a collective approval.
Well, unless they get a direct instruction from the chair not to sign, isn't that so?
If I was informed, as you are saying, my lady, if I was informed, as council is saying, that in fact Dr. Tambi was part of the team, so I wouldn't have expected him to necessarily raise the hand because he automatically approved it. But if I heard that on the supplier day, Kwinana's approval was canvassed, if I also knew that Tony Dixon had approved, Mayor had approved, that's a majority.
But Ms.
So-
Myeni, I would have expected the chair to discuss this with Ms. Kwinana and Dr. Tambi, because I've had on the evening or early mornings of the 16th of June, uncontested evidence is that Mr. Besaidnout got an instruction not to sign, and the next day an WhatsApp from you saying that there's a difference of opinion regarding who the we were. They testified it was President Zuma. You say no, it was the board. So you then must have talked to the board prior to that call. And I find that in total contradiction then with the rest of the evidence. Please explain it.
It is not true, my lady. The CEO knows that once the collective approval has been received, he would write an email and say, Dr. Tambi has approved, Mayor has approved, everyone has considered this, they've approved. Chair, what do we do with moving forward? The collective has done.
Is there
I'm saying
any
it is not
indication
true that
anywhere in these papers that you approved the Emirates deal?
my lady, it is not true that I was there is no way one person can
I'm just
overrule that.
asking you a simple question. Is there anywhere, any indication, I'm not talking about Ms. Kwinana, I'm not talking about Dr. Tambi. Is there any indication on these papers that you at any point supported the Emirates deal?
In the board minutes, my lady, there is a paragraph that talks to that we were all satisfied.
On the 10th of July.
Yes. But the collective, if I was told that every other member, even if one or two people had not approved, there was no way I would not, in my individual capacity, not approve this. There is absolutely no way.
What I also do not understand from the evidence is, I think, if I remember correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, when Minister Nene was approached in this regard, he stated in a letter it's an operational issue, it's not for the shareholder and not for the non-executive members of the board. It's a matter for the executive team. But then they got a direct instruction not to sign.
My lady,
If you can put that into context, you can't object to questions that I asked,
No,
Mr.
my lady, it's the
Buthelezi.
correct
I want an explanation from this witness.
My lady, it's the question that you pose about Mr. Nene's comments. Mr. Nene says it's either the executive or the board. He does not exclude the board.
Well, I don't want to mislead her, so let's go to that exact, if someone can assist me, let's go to that exact email.
Volume 3, page 215. If you want me just to read the relevant bit, milady.
Yeah, you can read it.
My learned friend is correct. He says, as indicated in your correspondence, this is an operational matter which should be dealt with at a management or board level. And he says the shareholder does not get involved. And he says, I have not been consulted by the board. Therefore, it's assumed that the competency to deal with your request lies squarely with the management and the board of SAA. I hope this clarifies the position on the shareholder in this matter.
So those were the words. It would seem then that the management approved of the deal and some of the board members also. What was holding, and that is a very simple question, what was holding you back on giving the proper instructions? Or must I infer that you're saying it was because Dr. Tambi and Ms. Kwinana didn't approve, so you didn't?
No, my leader. If I'm hearing that the witnesses that came here said Dr. Tambi, Mayor, Tony Dixon, and Kwinana had approved, if I knew that, if I was told that, that is a final go. Once you have the majority passing any approval or consideration, it's a collective approval. But nobody told me that every other person has met and considered this or have approved it based on what they read. Let us, because, my lady, anyone could have said, let us do it by round robin or via any other form or by telcon. It would have been done. So one person can never hold.
But you are the chair of the board. You could also have done that. You would concede.
My vote alone, my lady.
No, I'm not asking that. I'm asking you as the chairperson could also have arranged a round robin. Am I correct?
Correct.
And
Correct.
you did not.
We did not need a round robin resolution for this. We needed to give them support.
Ms. Myeni, two things. We've been through the minutes of the meeting on the 28th of May. And, my lady, just to reference it, it's page 123B. And you don't have to go there because we've been to this letter yesterday. The final paragraph. So here we have Mr. Dixon expressing his support. And then the final paragraph. The chairperson of the board undertook to provide her decision by 9 June 2015, and no resolution was taken on this matter. Now, this makes clear these certified minutes. It was the chairperson's decision that was outstanding. So we put it to you that you knew that if you had given your approval on the 9th, the minutes say if you had given your approval on the 9th, as you undertook to do in a board meeting, Mr. Bezuidenhout could have signed the deal.
My lady, if I knew then that every other member had supported this deal, Mr. Bezuidenhout did not need to call me and say, I need your approval. Because when he wanted my approval, he was soliciting one approval of one person. I was not aware of what I'm hearing today.
Well, then let me put this to you. If we accept your version, which we don't, but if we accept your version, that when you sent the SMS to Mr. Bezuidenhout on the morning of the 16th of June in Paris, and you said, we are not satisfied. You say it's the board, and you say you may not sign. Your testimony is the we. It's not you and President Zuma, it's you and the board. Is that correct? Is that correct?
I don't know how President Zuma was brought into
No.
this.
I am asking you a simple question. Your testimony in chief was that when you said we, it meant the board.
The board.
The board.
Yes.
Now, on your version, you stopped Mr. Bezuidenhout from signing the MOU on the 16th. You caused massive embarrassment to SAA and the country. But you hadn't checked with your fellow members of the board whether they agreed with you or not. Now, if we accept that version, that, Ms. Myeni, is reckless in the extreme.
My lady, when I sent that SMS, it was my clear understanding that no other board had had any consideration or approval or support.
On what was that understanding
The we,
based?
that SMS that the council is talking
on what
about.
was that understanding that we can
My
learn?
understanding.
On what was your understanding based
My
when
understanding.
you wrote the SMS?
My understanding, my lady, was that we had not met and considered the reviewed MOU.
Not that you'd personally spoken to each board member before you took this radical step that had terrible consequences for the airline that you were chair of.
You know, Council, I stand by what I'm saying. If I had known that the collective had supported, and of course Nico was part of the collective, was part of the board, he ought to have also told me that Dixon, Kwinana, Tambi, and Mayor have already supported it.
So you
My understanding was that every other person had not considered this. That is why I confidently said we as the board.
So your version is you had no responsibility as chair of the board to check what your fellow members felt before you sent that email, that SMS on the
I
16th.
deny what you're saying, Council.
But you didn't. You didn't take
No,
the trouble.
It's not like I did not have any responsibility. I
You did
deny
have
that
responsibility.
statement.
Well, that is our version. You did have the responsibility.
My lady,
you didn't
I had the
discharge it.
responsibility, the collective decision rules in a board. If I knew that the rest of the people had approved and supported this, there was no way one person would hold the decision. At no point did I get even an SMS from Bezuidenhout saying, highlighting the names of all the people that they are being mentioned in this court today.
So
it was never communicated to
No,
me.
and you didn't try and find out. So you didn't send a round robin, even though at this stage your operational review committee said there is an enormous loss if we don't sign. That you didn't round robin for a decision.
Councillor, stand by what I have said because it is based on the understanding that I had at that very time that they were in Paris.
Well, I think we can move on. Then we have the catastrophic day. You yourself had testified that it's an enormous event. The whole world, aviation world, is there. All the press are there. And you then suggested that, Mr. Bezuidenhout was upset because he didn't shine. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Well, I must tell you that Mr. Bezuidenhout did shine. Do you know that Mr. Bezuidenhout was the recipient of a very significant award at that occasion?
I do know that SAA received an award.
Mr. Bezuidenhout received an award on behalf of Mango for being the best low-cost operator in the world. And Mr. Bezuidenhout continues to go from strength to strength. It wasn't Mr. Bezuidenhout who suffered. It was SAA and the country that were embarrassed. On the 6th of July, in Volume 2, 191A, the executives of the airline again tried to get this matter approved. Sorry, I just left one thing out that I must. Mr. Bezuidenhout was asked why, if he knew that the full board, except for you, had given approval, why didn't you just sign? And he said, because I had a direct instruction from the chair of the board. And later, when Ms. Mshe was asked by your counsel, why didn't you just sign? She said, because nobody ever countermanded the direct instruction to the acting CEO not to sign. And I must point out that the MOU, clause 13.3.3 says, the CEO shall be responsible for day-to-day functions of the company and shall be obliged to comply with any instructions issued by the board. And Mr. Bezuidenhout understood your SMS to be an instruction from the chair of the board, and Ms. Mshe understood it that way too. So Mr. Bezuidenhout comes home and he tries, along with Mr. Bosk and then Ms. Mshe and Mr. Meyer, to get some sort of revision to this direct instruction so they can sign. So what he does is on the 6th of July, by now was it Ms. Mshe? I don't recall. It was Mr. Bezuidenhout. On the 6th of July, he puts a draft resolution. Do you have it, Ms. Myeni?
Yes.
He puts a draft resolution before the board. In fact, he puts the old resolution. Sorry. So should I start? Sorry, my lady. Can we start at 191C? This is on the 6th of July. The acting SAA CEO puts a memo to the board, and we see that the purpose of the memo is to approve the non-binding memorandum of understanding between SAA and Emirates Airline prior to its execution by management. And he goes through the sad history of this, and you will see who signs it. At the bottom, it's 191H. It was compiled by Mr. Parsons, and it was supported by Mr. Bosk, and it was recommended to the board to be signed by Mr. Bezuidenhout. And if you go to the page before, on the 6th of July, he says to you, 6, financial implication, acceptance of MOU. It's not applicable as this is a non-binding commercial MOU. It should, however, be noted that conceivably any delay beyond 1 July 2015, we're now at the 6th of July, extends the 6-month period envisaged for negotiation and could defer potential revenue benefit for SAA, assuming the benefits contained within the Emirates proposal is correct, and SAA derives an additional $100 million per annum from this initiative. The minimum opportunity cost of delay for SAA would then be 100 million rand per month, or an average of 3 million rand per day. So by the 6th of July, according to this estimation, The cost of not signing on the 16th of June is 600 million rand. And every day another 100 million rand is lost. He tells you this on the 6th of July. He puts a resolution before the board. And that was the resolution that I'd gone to. Is that right? That's the resolution on page 191A. And if you will note the resolution number, because this becomes important, it's resolution 2015/B44. Now, Ms. Myeni, you respond to this submission from your CEO at page 192. And you say, dear acting CEO, there is a very clear plan which was communicated with everyone. Barry wrote down items that were meant to be CEO and chairperson one-on-one discussion items. I never asked him, nor gave him instructions on Emirates to send a round robin for board approval at all. We will follow the steps as per the attached action list. So you, in fact, block this round robin from being sent out, according to your own email. And you say instead, while we're losing 300 million rand a day, let's follow the steps in the action list. And now we're going to get to the action list. So let's be clear, this draft resolution 2015/B44 is still not round robined on the 6th of July. Now, we then go to the minutes of the meeting on the 10th of July. And, milady, the full copy was the new document handed in by learned friends. And can we just make sure that Ms. Myeni has the full copy with the action list?
Just indicate to me which document these are.
Is it in a file?
Or is it in my file somewhere?
Looks like that. Please sort this out.
Can we just for future purposes refer to this as Exhibit A?
Exhibit A,
Then
thank you,
I'll-
my lady.
It will be easier for me to find, yes.
And I've asked the attorney to file it in my lady's file where the incomplete minutes were, to replace the incomplete minutes. So the Emirates relationship is discussed on page 2 of 9. And this is the paragraph you rely on to say the board had given its approval. correct? Yes. It says, the board confirmed that it was satisfied with the draft non-binding Emirates Memorandum of Understanding and concluded that the next process, as outlined in the action list from the meeting held on Friday the 3rd of July 2015 with the Emirates Operational Review Committee, should be followed. The action list of 3 July is attached as Annexure A to the minutes. And if we go to Annexure A of the minutes, Item 5 is meeting between SAA and Emirates, the action owners, the GM Commercial. Bullet point 1, SAA Emirates review team should organise a meeting with Emirates after the meeting with the board and DOT. The Emirates team should also meet with the board. Over the page, it should be arranged that the chairperson of the SAA board meet with the chairperson of Emirates. So, whether what was required was a board resolution or what was required was board approval, what this tells us is that the board may have been satisfied with the MOU. But the next steps were not to allow management to sign. They were to arrange more meetings. Emirates Review Committee still had to meet with Emirates. You still wanted to meet with Emirates after missing 2 meetings. And you still had to meet with the DOT. So merely saying that the minutes reflect that the board was satisfied is half the story. The rest of the story is that there were more meetings to be held. And when you reprimanded Mr. Bezuidenhout in your email stopping the round robin, you say to him, you follow the action list. Well, here it is.
My lady, there was no board resolution required for the round-robin resolution that was required. They needed board support. They needed board approval. They needed that we agree after we were satisfied. So the action list was part. I did not ask for a meeting with Emirates.
Why was the round robin then stopped? Because that could have solved
That
the
approval
problem.
that was sought, my lady, from the outset, as I explained yesterday, the executives came to us that we consider the MOU, and it was presented to us as a non-binding MOU, and that approval was given from the outset. But what we needed to do
To sign.
was not, sorry?
To sign the MOU right from the outset.
To look at, to review the MOU to our satisfaction, because it was brought to us, my lady. We needed to.
My question is just this. Did the board at any point grant the permission that the MOU could be signed?
We approved the MOU.
No, you're not answering my question. I'm not asking whether you approved it. Did you tell the CEO, Mr. Bezuidenhout, or the CEO, Ms. Mshe, go ahead and sign it?
It was approved, my lady. It was approved.
I'm asking whether the board gave permission that it be signed.
The board approved
Where
the
did-
MOU
where
to sign
did-
it. On the
where-
minutes, the board said.
But why
it
was the round robin then stopped? That's what I can't
My lady,
understand.
this was not a round-robin approval that was sought. It was a concurrence by the board, approval by the board, consideration by the board. not a round-robin approval that was necessary. No round-robin approval was necessary, my lady.
These are the official minutes and these are the official action list. And what it says is that the board is satisfied. Well, the board had said it was satisfied all along in terms of your testimony. But the action list did not say sign. The action list said more meetings.
I don't think the action list council was going to say sign. The action list, we were asked to consider, to support the management on the Emirates non-binding MOU.
Ms. Myeni, you
the
had given
board was satisfied.
you had given a direct instruction, written instruction to Mr. Bezuidenhout not to sign. It's fair enough that Mr. Bezuidenhout and Ms. Mshe could not sign until you gave a direct instruction countermanding that. Instead of telling them to make more meetings. I think we can move on. The fact of the matter is, however you look at this meeting of the 3rd, it was not a board resolution, which you stopped, and yesterday you said was required, nor was it unconditional board approval. It was conditional board approval. We're satisfied that these things have to happen first. Now, I just want to go back and make something clear in these minutes. The final page of the minutes, it's page 7 of 9. Under round robin resolutions, C. The board noted round robin 2015 B04 to 2015 B39. What it didn't note, what is not here, is resolution 2015 B44, the Emirates resolution. That resolution was not there for noting because you had blocked it. And it carries on by saying the company secretary alerted the board to the fact that considering matters by round robin should be an exception rather than the norm because members were robbed of the combined wisdom of other directors when considering a complex matter by round robin. So in fact, the company secretary at this point is implicitly saying you actually used too many round robins. But the one urgent decision that was costing SAA 100 million rand per day was not round robin.
My lady, we needed to support, and I stand by the decision that I've made in my response, my lady. We did not need a round-robin resolution for this MOU. We needed to approve it, to consider it, to concur, and allow them to continue with what ought to have happened. That is the decision of the board where they said they were satisfied with the reviewed MOU, and I think I've answered that question, my lady.
You know, on the 31st of March, there was a board meeting, and the minutes on the 2nd of April reflect that the board was satisfied. The board being satisfied but asking for more actions to be taken doesn't help anybody to sign, particularly when there is a direct instruction not to sign.
I still deny counsel about the direct instruction via SMS. I deny that. And also it must be noted, my lady, that at post the 16th of June, there was too much going on the media and the lies that were on the media. And I still stand by what I've said. My understanding was as I have explained in this court, my lady.
In fact, I'd like to tell you what you said about your irritation. You said, I no longer cared what happened, quote unquote. You were so annoyed that the media had scapegoated you that you said, I no longer cared what happened. So you no longer cared that 100 million rand a day was being lost, and that your CEO was begging you to round robin a resolution, and you refused. You simply no longer cared.
My response, I deny what the council is saying, my lady. I did not say I never cared whether we got 100 million or whatever. It is not true. I deny that statement. There was too much suffocation and there was too much lies going around in the media.
So you couldn't do your job?
We signed, we approved, we gave support, and whatever that happens, whatever that happened, I was saying the management needed to deal with the implementation.
But we know the CEO was moved back to Mango.
I beg your pardon?
We know the CEO at that point was moved back to Mango. Mr. Besaidnout.
Which time, my lady? Are
Mr.
you saying
Besaidnout
when I said I don't care what happened?
No, I'm stating a fact. We know you say everything was in order and they could have proceeded. We know that the CEO, Mr. Besaidnout, was moved back to Mango.
My lady, the acting position had its own requirements and a protocol to follow. So I don't know whether then this court requires me to concur
Well,
with...
Mr. Besaidnout testified about that time, and I would like to hear your comment on that.
Sorry, my lady?
Mr. Besaidnout testified about how it came about that he was removed from his position, as well as Mr. Sylvain Bosque, as well as Ms. Mshe.
My lady, the acting position has a time frame. Acting position also exposes the rest of the executives. You can act for 3 months, you can act for 6 months, but also there is a timeline when you're acting. If you are then overacting, in other words, if you pass a certain time when you are acting in any position, there is an expectation. Therefore, the exposure did not mean that when a
Are
person
you saying
acts,
that Mr. Besaidnout's time just simply ran out and that was why he was moved
my
back
lady,
to
I would
Mango?
need to go back then to the documents as to when he started acting, when he stopped acting, so that I can satisfactorily answer that question. Because mixing the acting and the Emirates, I don't know whether I would do justice.
You know what
to
is
the-
of
to the
concern
response.
to me? Key people who were negotiating the Emirates deal, Mr. Besaidnout and Mr. Bosque.
My lady, I don't think I am well equipped to say that this person did this wrong. I have been avoiding to say almost all these people that were here are all aggrieved. So I have been avoiding to say that.
No, you don't have to avoid it because they've dealt with it in open court.
Now, the executives carry on trying well into August to get the approval needed to sign the MOU. If you go to page 209.2, that's still volume 3. At this stage, it is Ms. Mshe who's the acting CEO, and she sends an email to Moira de Vos on the 18th of August, and you'll see that the subject line is Board of Direction Action List to meeting of 26 August 2015. And she asks Moira to request Nico if he's able to assist with the responses to the attached action list, because many of them came from the time that he was the acting CEO. So, what came before the board on the 26th of August is on page 209.4. And you see it's a control list of outstanding items from the board meeting of 28 May 2015. And if you page down to Emirates relationship, it's on 209.12. It says, number one, Emirates relationship. The accountable person is board chair. It says the origin of this item is from the 28th of May 2015. The action required is that the chairperson of the board to provide her decision on the proposed Emirates relationship by 9 June 2015, and no resolution was taken on this matter. The completion date should have been the 9th of June 2015, and the status is blank. So in other words, on the 26th of August 2015, the board was still waiting for your outstanding decision.
Council, I deny that statement.
Oh,
I was part of the collective of that meeting where the board was satisfied about the Emirates MOU. And my understanding was that it was a done and dusted decision. The approval was given.
So these
So I
minutes are
stand by my decision.
so these minutes are wrong. Action list's wrong.
The action list may not have been updated, but all I know is that that meeting completed the part of the board.
Even though you still had to meet with Emirates, the review committee had to meet with Emirates, still a meeting with DOT.
I explained in this court that I intended to meet Emirates, but when Emirates came into the country, that's when the meeting did not happen.
Yeah, you
Because
didn't
I
make
had a pressure, a commitment that I needed to take care of, which also involved my own health. Therefore, I could not travel, and I had planned, I had committed and planned to travel. But also, it wasn't a meeting that was to make effect or stop the MOU. Once it was reviewed, the Emirates MOU was supported. So, my lady, I don't think that meeting Emirates president or chairman was going to stop the process of implementation of what the board had supported and approved.
It's a pity nobody told your executive team that, because then they would have signed. And it's a pity no one updated the official minutes and action list, or they might have signed. But the testimony of all the executives was they never were authorized to sign. And as a result, this extraordinary Emirates deal was never executed, And of course, the irony today is that Emirates still has the fourth frequency. But SAA has none of the benefits that would have flowed to it, including 100 million rand a day. Those are my questions.
Re-examination.
Thank you, Maredi. Morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Maredi, I don't expect to be long, and I'll ask Ms. Myeni as well to assist me with basic questions. Now, where I intend to start is where you ended with regards to Emirates. If you can take the Emirates file. And what we're going to do is go over certain aspects, and one of them is things that you've testified about, things that you did do regarding Emirates. And I will start at page 117.115. That is your email dated 2 May. See that? Now, so at 116 is an email dated 1 May from Mr. Nico Poseidon, and you then, your email is then a response to that email. And you respond at 7:54 a.m. in the morning. Do you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Councillor.
Okay. What I want to do is go to the top of page 117.116, the next page. Now, can you read the top line there? Excuse me.
Sorry. I have been asked to go to Dubai on Monday without having seen the document. There is urgency for us to go to Dubai. It is important to have an urgent board meeting before we go. We need your approval as the board. I need to inform National Treasury. We must all be aligned. It is important.
Now, what I want to do is that I want to bring attention to this point, in that you say it is urgent, it is important to have an urgent board meeting before we go. Why do you say it was urgent to have a board meeting? Oh, let me finish that. We need your approval as the board. I need to inform National Treasury. Is that what you say on the 2nd of May?
Yes.
All right, let's move on. Then can we go to page 2A, volume 1. We're still dealing with things that we did. And these are the minutes of the meeting dated 27th May 2015. Point 3. Okay.
Yes.
Do you see that? Now, it says this meeting at the starting point is that present is the chairperson via telecom. Right?
Yes.
3. Purpose. I'll read what it says. It says the chairperson explained that the purpose of this session was necessitated by the request from National Treasury to study the Emirates SAA partnership proposal from Emirates and submit its position regarding the said proposal to the shareholder. Right?
Yes.
Now, these are the opening remarks of this meeting, where, from what I read here, you state that the chairperson explained that the purpose of this session was necessitated by the request from National Treasury. So, is my understanding correct then that this meeting on the 27th of May was convened by yourself, Chair? Oh, Ms. Myeni.
It is correct, my
Right.
lady.
Let's go now to page 150. At the bottom of the page is an email dated 11th June from Mr. Nico Bezedeno to yourself, Ms. Kwinana, Dr. Tambi, and Mr. Mayor. And it says, Emirates, the subject is Emirates positioning paper, importance high. Do you see that?
Yes.
May I read to you what he says? He says, Hi Chair, I acknowledge your formal request received via SMS.
Sorry.
Do you have it? Page 150.
Yes, I have.
At the bottom. It says, Hi Chair, I acknowledge your formal request received via SMS for you to meet with the SAA operational team who did review of the MOU and supported its signature. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Bezeda note says you sent him a request via SMS requesting to meet with the operational team who reviewed the MOU. Was that correct?
Yes.
Now, the question then becomes, this is now on the 11th of June, right? And in your earlier evidence, you stated that you had not, for some reasons, you and the team then never had a chance to meet, or this MOU team. And we will argue, or not, I won't argue, but it's apparent from this that you then requested Mr. Bezedeno to assist in facilitating this meeting. You see that? All right. Let's move. Now, if we go to what my lady has now termed Exhibit A, the minutes of the meeting of the 10th of July. We have...
Sorry, my lady, the rest of the email
Yes.
is Mr. Bezedeno trying to set up that meeting before the 16th, which we've left out here. Is it possible for you to have that meeting after the supplier development engagement tomorrow? So he's traveling, but he tries to set up the meeting, but Ms. Myeni tells him they can't do it when he suggests. Let's just put that in.
My lady, that's nowhere. That is nowhere. He requests that is it possible for her to meet with this after the supplier development day.
Let's just look at the emails, what they say, then we don't have to argue about it. What
Thank
does
you,
it
ma'am.
say?
Page 150. There is no response, miss. The non-response, my lady.
Where is the non-response? I don't understand.
It's not there, ma'am.
There is an email dated from Nico Besaidet on the
Yes.
11 June,
Yes.
and then he say, I acknowledge your formal request received via SMS. And is there then a response from the chairperson?
No, there is no response, ma'am.
Where do I get that?
Well, we don't have it in the papers, ma'am. It was counsel, my little friend here, who raised this objection, my lady. My point was, Mr. Bezerino is on record saying he received a request from the chair to facilitate this meeting. Mr. Bezerino in response then says, is it possible to meet them tomorrow? The response thereto is absent, my lady.
There is no response in evidence before me from the chair.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So all we have here is a request by Mr. Besaidet to, he says he receives the request, he wants to set up a meeting, and
Yes.
then we have no response
Yes.
from
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Myeni.
Yes.
Yes.
So, The point about that email, my lady, is we'll make it an argument, was to say, but Mr. Bazedano is on record saying he received a request from the chair.
But we have no response from her on the
Thereafter.
request. That's a double-edged sword, Mr. Buthelezi.
Indeed, so, my lady, but we are not
You
custodians.
can argue it in
Yes,
there.
thank you, thank you. Then we were going to Exhibit A, page 7. Do you have that now? That is the signature page of the minutes of the meeting of the 10th of July. You see that? It's dated, what, some August?
26 August.
Now, the meeting was on the 10th of July. So, what appears from those minutes, ma'am, is that after July, on this meeting, these minutes were brought to you, were they not?
Yes.
And you signed them, sir.
For signature.
Thank you. Now, if we may then move along to let's go to, before we go, let's go to the actual MOU itself, which is at page 134. 135, sorry. Now, it was pointed out to you that at the top of this, these minutes were tracked, as in to say they were now amended. And it says, this memorandum of understanding hereinafter referred to as the MOU made and entered to on this date, 16, and the 16 is cancelled. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then day of June, and the June is cancelled and replaced with July. Do you see that, 2015?
I see that, my lady.
Do you have any comment on that?
I don't have comment. It's just clear.
Thank you. Now, if we may move to papers. If we may go to page 2360. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. 2360.
Which bundle is that?
That's bundle volume 4, my lady, of Airbus.
Emirates.
Airbus.
Airbus bundle 4.
Yes, 236. The document starts at 236N for label.
Sorry, I'm still struggling to get it.
She said L or N.
N. And then we move to page. Oh, I'm not too sure if your ladyship has found it.
236.
Oh. O. So it starts at 236N and then it goes to O. Effectively, this. Sorry, Marie, then it's actually N. It starts at N, sorry. It's titled the SAA Business Case for the Proposal to Acquire New 5 A330 aircraft. Do you see that?
Yes.
And there's a summary of the document that goes all the way and goes at 236Q. Yeah. Is that your signature then?
Yes, it is.
But the question I have for you then is, who would have prepared this document? Was this a document prepared by yourself now?
No, not at all.
Who would have prepared this document?
It would have been the executives.
And then what was the circumstances then in which you would sign? Why would you then sign it?
It would be circulated, and if it is for forward transmission, perhaps to the National Treasury, it would need my signature.
Now, I'd like us to go to 221A. Is that the letter from Minister Nene dated the 3rd of November?
What is it, 221?
A. Sorry, it's 221.1. Right? 221. I beg your pardon, ma'am. It's 221.1. The letter of the 3rd of November from Minister Nene. Do you see that?
Yes, my lady.
Now, what I want to take with you here is the following. Is that paragraph 7. It starts with the same. It starts with the following. I note that SAA is reviewing the transaction, and based on our meeting of 2 November, I understand that the board is considering a local aircraft leasing company or an outright purchase. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Now, it carries on. It says, as I highlighted in our meeting on 2 November 2015, in future the SAA board should ensure that they have properly applied their mind to any transaction before requesting my approval. Moreover, should there be the need to reconsider a transaction that I have already approved, I should be comprehensively briefed in this regard, including being provided with the rationale for reconsidering the application, as well as a clear explanation of the business case and potential financial implications of the alternative being considered. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, the question I ask you is this. 2 November, from what we now have been told, is that Airbus is wanting to enforce the PDPs, right?
Yes.
Help me understand. You then have a meeting with the minister on the 2nd of November, and he writes to you on the 3rd of November. And in this letter, Minister Nene doesn't raise with you the fact that you are now reconsidering what he has previously approved. And in having done so, he then doesn't tell you that your action of reconsidering what he has already approved is bringing the company of the brink of PDPs. Why didn't Minister Nene bring up the issue of PDPs in your meeting of 2 November, or in this letter? You know, was it a discussion between the two of you, or what was his views about the fact that Airbus, this late stage, November, Airbus could have now demanded these PDPs? What was the minister's views? Do you know?
As much as I would base my response, my lady, to this letter, but in our discussion with the minister, we engaged him on what the board was looking into in the best interest of the company. So the decision of or his consideration of what the board was busy doing was as a result of him supporting what we were thinking of. But also, he was also asking the board to say, because of this consideration, let me be properly briefed on this matter. So I think let me stop there.
Okay. Now, on the topic of PDPs, can we go to page 28610? That is now page 3 of Minister Nene's letter of 3 December. The last letter we dealt with was 3 November.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to invite your comments on what is said here. It says the following. National Treasury concurs with SAA's assessment. I'm informed that according to the daily cash flow forecast provided by SAA, the airline would not have sufficient funds available to meet the PDP payments PDP payments as they became due and payable. Consequently, there is a high risk that SAA would default on its obligation. This would trigger cross defaults on SAA's guaranteed debt obligations as well as other leasing arrangements. As already highlighted, a default by SAA would have severe negative consequences for South Africa, for SAA, and could have a spillover consequences for the country as a whole. Specifically, it would have a negative impact on the government's capacity to deliver on its social and development objectives. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, the question I want to ask you is the following. You testified that, or let me not say you testified, help me understand this point. What was your understanding of how the PDPs would be dealt with if this contract was now moved from Airbus to a local leasing company? How are you guys contemplating or envisaging dealing with these potential PDP exposure that existed here?
When we got the, my lady, when we got the extension by Airbus of 30 days after the meeting that the board had with Airbus, it was my understanding that that 30 days meant that it included the fact that they are also extending that particular obligation from SAA's side. But we also wanted that if we found an local aircraft leasing company, that would be part of the instruction to them to say they must also take care of the PDPs as they would kick in. That was my understanding of it.
No, thank you. Now, can you go to page 246 for me, please? found it?
Yes.
Now, there's an email from Mr. Hadi Yakum of Airbus. Do you see that?
Yes.
Right. Now, this is an email addressed to yourself on the 16th of November. Right?
Yes.
Now, I've got a very fuzzy copy. I'm not too sure how you read it. Are you able to read it?
I'm able to read.
Can you please read into the record what this letter to you says?
It's from Akum Hadi, Airbus, and it's the subject, read letter from South African Airways Chairperson, A320/A330 swap transaction.
Yeah.
Dear Chairperson, thank you for your last letter dated November 11, 2015 on the above subject. Airbus is willing exceptionally to give South African Airways another 30 days exemption from its obligation on the A320 due PDP payment until we have a clear understanding on how Nedbank would be financing the direct purchase of SAA of the five A330-300. My team will contact SAA acting CEO to define a date for the joint meeting with Nedbank. As per Carol Coloma letter dated October 26, 2015, and addressed to SAA top management, the A330-300 delivery dates will have to be adjusted based on Airbus industrial constraints. Regards, Hadi.
Thank you. Now, what is your understanding on Airbus's position on PDPs after reading this email?
My understanding when I received this letter was that Airbus was willing to go out of its way to grant us an exception. It says to give us another extension of 30 days regarding the PDP obligations.
But there is a specific reference to Nedbank.
Yes.
Yes.
What I'm asking now is, what was Airbus's attitude with regards to potentially transferring this lease or having this lease in Nedbank's name? What was Airbus's attitude in this letter?
From this tone of the letter, it doesn't appear to have, Airbus does not appear, from the tone here and from the engagements, I presume that there was no it was not a bad attitude, I would say.
If you can read the last line again of the first paragraph. It says, my team, I can't read clearly, but it's quite fuzzy. What does it say?
My team will contact South African Airways acting CEO
Yes.
to define a date for the joint meeting with Nedbank.
Joint meeting.
Yes.
It says. Now, if you may go to page 250, not too far from it.
At that stage, no procurement procedures were followed and Nedbank was not a financier. Am I correct?
Sorry, my lady.
In order for Nedbank to assist SAA, there should have been a proper procurement procedure. Am I correct?
We, as the board, we always followed that process, my lady.
As far as I understand good governance in state-owned entities, there will always be a procurement procedure. At that stage, was there any procurement procedure done to enable Nedbank to finance this, apart from the unsolicited proposal by Mr. Magadi?
There was no procurement procedure followed, my lady.
So it would seem, if I'm correct, that Airbus was under the impression that Nedbank was already put in place. and would assist SAA.
I don't know their understanding, my lady, because he was going to consult with the CEO. I'm sure they would establish that through the CEO.
Yes, Ms. Myeni. Proceed.
Can we go to page 250? My lady, I see it's past tea time. If we may proceed for another 10
Oh,
minutes.
no, I won't forgive you. How long are you going to be?
Maximum 10 minutes, my lady, and we're done for the day.
And then you're done.
Yes.
I'm going to time you.
Thank you.
Then I'll allow you to proceed, Mr.
Thank you.
Buthelezi.
Thank you. If you go to page 250, page 250 is the last page of this section 54 application that starts at 247. You see that?
Yes.
At the bottom of that is your signature, and then the signature of the group CEO. You see that?
Yes, sir.
Now, at the top there, there's the issue that became is that this document was not signed by all the people whose spaces are allocated on the sheet. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now, the first question is, who would have drafted the Section 54 application?
My lady, this is an internal document, but this particular one was compiled. If I look at the whole document, it would have been compiled at the legal department.
250. Yes.
It would have been compiled by the GM Legal Risk and Compliance.
We didn't sign it.
Yeah, irrespective of that, my lady, but it is compiled from the legal.
Well,
risk
how
and
do I infer that without the signature? The only signatures that I see here is yours and Mr. Zwane's.
My lady, I would have signed after Mr. Zwane. So,
I don't care who would sign, but I would have expected all the signatures there, especially if you say the legal department drafted it. But I suppose then you signed it, so you must have read it and have agreed with it.
my lady, the CEO had signed it. So, whoever that compiled it, if she didn't sign it, the CEO brings it to me. I signed it.
No, Ms.
at the
Myeni,
strength
you read
of
it, you read it,
Yes.
you consider it,
Yes.
and only then can you sign.
Yes, my lady.
Right. You don't have to answer this question, but if you don't have the answer. But the question is, in terms of Section 54 of the PFMA, do you know if there are any requirements on signatures for the submission of Section 54 applications? Do you know?
I haven't. When you say I know, what do you
I'm
mean?
saying, do you know the requirements of signatures in PFMA?
Yes, I do.
Yes, what are they?
I have to sign the document,
You
and
as-
the CEO has to sign it. And
Yes.
But certainly only when you agree with the content.
Yes.
yes, absolutely.
Right. Now, I'd like us to go to volume 3 of Airbus, page 177. Last question.
17.
177.
One 170.
177.
Sorry.
Have you got it?
Yes, I am.
Now, I need your clarity on the second paragraph. It says, I'm pleased to inform you that SAA has decided to do the transaction slightly differently. See, the question then became for you was, when you say here, or when it is said here, that the SAA has decided to do the transaction slightly differently, what do you mean it has been decided? Was this a board resolution?
My lady, I think I explained that sorry, it's not all decisions of the board. Sorry, my lady, the decisions of the board can be decisions that needed to be actioned, but not necessarily resolutions. So this was a decision of the board. So the board would have met and decided to ask for whatever action that would be put before and agree on that particular matter.
The question I asked you, was this a board resolution or was this a board decision?
It was a board decision.
Thank you. Now, let's go to page 181.
181.
Yes. It says, the board requested management to direct members to individuals or institutions which could unlock opportunities for SAA. Do you see that?
Yes.
Now the question I ask you is, when did this board decide this issue to say to request management? Or does this now talk to what is at 177? How do these two connect?
Just check the date.
Isn't that a leading question? Should you not rather ask her if there is a connection between 177 and 178?
I beg your pardon.
Yes.
It's been a long 5 minutes. Thank you. I'm saying this that appears at 181 that says the board requested management. Do you see that?
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out from you, is there any link between what you say at 177 and what is said here?
Yes, there is.
Please explain it.
This has always been the board's view, and the board requests that the management action.
Well,
This
we know
process.
this was a special meeting. It wasn't a board meeting. So, if I understood it correctly, where's the resolution that links this?
My
Because
lady, it's not
there's a
if-
dispute. It says here minutes of a special meeting, and the evidence from the other side was, and I must say the heading also reads special meeting, not board meeting. So
Even
was
if-
there, and I think there was evidence that there was no vote at this meeting.
My lady, this decision had always been a decision of the board, that we requested the management to look into the possibility, to explore this. And I think it is also alluded to by Minister Nene that I am noting that the board is exploring the issue of the African aircraft leasing company. Thanks. I think that's my response.
Last question. Page 178. There's been a repeated allegation made. Oh, in fact, two more questions. That this meeting had no agenda. Item 2. Can you read what item 2 says about from this minute?
The board approved the agenda for the meeting as consideration and approval of shareholder compact deliverables to be submitted to the shareholder as agreed, and the board meeting held on 28 September 2015.
Right.
So it is not true that there was no board agenda.
Last question. Questions were raised about why SAA board got into direct negotiations or engagement with Airbus. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember.
The question is, can you provide the context that allowed or that made it happen that the SAA board was in meetings with Airbus?
My lady, the Airbus relationship with South African Airways is as old as 2002, in my recollection. And it has this legacy big project or big order that was placed in 2002. That legacy transaction had been altered in the past, and as and when there was a need, the management would meet or the executives would meet with Airbus, but when there is also a call for the board to be part of the engagements, the board has done that. It has happened during my time in the previous board when I was a board member, and it had happened in the past as well, because this 2002 order has been altered in a number of times, and it was not unusual for SAA board to have a meeting per request with Airbus.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Can I maybe just quickly see counsel here at the back? The court will adjourn for a moment.
Turn off the feed.
Can I talk to you now?
No, we're not done.